Shavua Tov, everyone. Welcome to video number 50 in our Tillis Tells WhatsApp story group. I translated this story from Rishimat Devorim by Rabbi Yehuda Hitrik, volume 1. And there the central character was the Rebbe Zev Wolf Mizijichov, a Talmid of the Maggid of Mezrich. However, I originally heard this story from my very first Hasidic story master, Rabbi Akiva Greenberg, and he says he heard this story from the Vizhnitz Rebbe, and the Vizhnitz Rebbe told it in the name of Rabbi Menachem-Mendel of Horodok and Vitebsk. I adjusted my translation accordingly, and from my first version, I added more detail. Story number 254 on my mailing list. It's in my first book, Saturday Night Full Moon, and its title is To See The Rebbe'S Face. Rabbi Menachem-Mendel was born in Minsk, but after he became a follower of the Maggid, he moved to Vitebsk. But he didn't live there so long, less than a year, I believe, when the Maggid instructed him to, instead of living in Vitebsk, which was a full city, he should move to Horodok, a much smaller community. And there he had many followers and lived there for over 10 years until in 1777 he led the Hasidic Aliyah to the Holy Land. It was the first European mass aliyah, about 300 families, many decades before the Aliyah Aleph of the Zionists. Where did they live? They lived first in Tzfat, right here. But after a while, they moved to Tveria. Most of them moved to Tveria, where he lived for another 10 years, until his passing on the first day of the Jewish month of Iyar in 1788. In Horodok, there lived a shochet, a slaughterer, and who was also an expert mohel, circumciser. And once he was invited to do a brit milah in a nearby village. It was scheduled for Friday morning, so he accepted the job because he knew his only concern was he should be able to be back for Shabbat and to attend the Rebbe's Tish, that is the gathering at the Rebbe's home after each of the Shabbat meals. And it didn't seem that would be a problem. But unfortunately, on his way back, he got lost when the road passed through a thick forest. And he wandered and couldn't find his way, and realized that he wasn't going to be able to make it back to Horodok in time for Shabbat. In fact, he didn't know what he was going to do for Shabbat. But as he wandered some more, he saw a light in the distance, which he followed, and there it was a house which he entered. He knocked and entered, and he saw in his room was gathered a large number of majestic-looking people, and they were about to start Kabbalat Shabbat. And he thought, well, how fortunate am I to find a minyan in the woods. And he was very impressed with the tunes they were singing and the exuberance with which they were singing. And so after the prayers, he joined them in the next room, which was set for a large table was set for a Shabbat meal. And the room soon filled, and at the head of the table was sitting an elderly, extraordinary-looking person with a long white beard. And during this meal, this elder would interrupt a number of times and say words of Torah. And each time after he gave a little talk, one of the people sitting near the chassid would ask him, "Do you like our Rebbe's Torah?" And he would say yes with great enthusiasm because he was really quite impressed. And the same scene repeated itself the next day after the inspiring morning prayer service during the 2 day meals of Shabbat. So the elder again said at various times different words of Torah, and when they asked him did he like them, he would say yes with even more enthusiasm than the night before, because really he found them even more interesting and more creative than the night ones. Uh, when Shabbat ended, after Havdalah, all of a sudden he found himself alone, and somehow he was able to make his way out of the forest and find his way home. When he got home, it was quite late at night, but still he rose early in the morning because he wanted to be part of the Rebbe's morning minyan, to see the Rebbe and to see the Rebbe's face and to interact with the Rebbe. But what happened when he knocked on the door to enter? The Rebbe's attendant, the Gabbai, wouldn't admit him, and he said, "Why?" And the Gabbai said, "The Rebbe said not to admit you." So he didn't think so much of it, whatever the reason, but he decided he would come back for the evening prayer, which he didn't always do. But again, he was refused admittance. And the same thing on Monday morning and Tuesday morning. 3 days in a row, it was too much for him. He said to the Gabbai, why won't you let me in? Why does the Rebbe not let me in? So the Gabbai said, I don't know. He's never offered me any explanation. He just told me not to let you in, so I don't let you in. So the chassid was totally distraught. He spent the rest of the week in crying and fasting. And on Friday, he came to the Rebbe's house, not at the time of a minyan, but at a private time, and knocked on the door until finally the attendant opened the crack and said, "What do you want? I told you the Rebbe said not to admit you." He said, "Oh, please, it is horrible that I can't. How can I live without being able to see the Rebbe? Can't you please go and ask him what is my terrible sin that he won't allow me in his house?" So the Gabbai felt a little sorry for him, so he went and came back and said, "The Rebbe said to tell you that house in which you spent last Shabbos, that's controlled by the evil forces. And each time you accepted their words of Torah and appreciated them, so you became more deeply under their control. And now you are impure, and the Rebbe won't admit somebody to his house with such impurity." So the chassid just couldn't believe it. He broke down. He started crying. He said, please go back to the Rebbe again. Ask him what I can do to rectify the situation. So the Gabbai did that, and he came back and told him, the Rebbe said, the only hope is before next Shabbat, you go to the forest and find that house. And when they say, and when they say that the words of Torah, so instead of appreciating them, you have to say impure, fe, and spit. But you should know this will, and then you'll be out of their clutches, but you should know this will prove to be quite difficult. So the next Friday he set out, and sure enough, he was able to find the house in the forest. And the same scene repeated itself. There was the inspiring prayer service, and there was the large, crowded Shabbat table with the same elder sitting at the head. And again, soon early in the meal, the elder gave an impressive Devar Torah, an impressive Torah lesson, even more impressive and more creative than all the ones he had heard the week before. And sure enough, somebody asked him, so, "No, how do you like our Rebbe's Torah this week? Isn't it amazing?" And he almost succumbed and agreed, but because he was so overwhelmed by that words of Torah. But then he remembered how much he suffered during the week, not being able to see the Rebbe, and he said, impure, tummy, fe, and he spit. Immediately the room was silent, absolute silence. Everybody stared at him. And the elder said, "Who are you to declare our Torah is impure?" He said, "Me, I'm an insignificant nobody. But I'm a chassid of Rabbi Menachem-Mendel of Horodok, who told me that all this is impure." The elder turned back to his followers and said, "Bring the ledgers, bring all the books." this they did, and he explained to the chassid that in these books are all the words of Torah that were said for impure reasons, for grandeur, for money, for power, for influence, and they all belong to us. And if your Rebbe, if his name is found in these books, since he accuses us of being impure, if his name is found in our collection of impure Torah, so you will belong to us. And if his name is not here, which is almost impossible, so then you'll be free to go and you'll be out of our clutches. And they looked through all of these thick volumes, page by page, volume by volume. It took quite a long time, and not once could they find the name of Rabbi Menachem-Mendel of Horodok. Every time he had said words about Torah, it was purely for the sake of heaven. So the chassid was free of their clutches, no longer tainted. He went back, and sure enough, on the Sunday morning, he was able to join the minyan and once again see the Rebbe's face.